Oregon has an interesting plan when it comes to student loans. And the idea is, in response to the increase in federally subsidized Stafford student loan rates recently, which went from 3.4% to 6.8%, and we've talked about that a little bit on the show, the Oregon State Legislature approved a measure which would basically eliminate the need for student loans as such. They're calling it the Pay It Forward, Pay It Back bill. It would basically get rid of tuition and it instead allows students to pay a portion of their future income into a special education fund. So instead of taking out a loan and paying it back disconnected from how much money you make, this basically says whatever you make over the next 20 years, if you go to a community college, you pay back 1.5% of your annual salary. And if you go and you get a 4-year degree, you pay 3% of your annual salary. The payoff period will be roughly about 20 years. This is interesting, but I have some serious problems with it. One is the idea that this kind of makes people indentured servants or slaves, not only to the company who would issue a student loan, right? So under normal circumstances, you get a student loan from a bank, or maybe it's one of these government subsidized loans, still handled by typically a for-profit bank. You're kind of a slave to that bank in a sense, because even when you declare bankruptcy, student loan debt does not clear. Now you're taking it and people are essentially slaves to corporations. Now, yes, they may be working for a small business and that may be the income that's being used to kind of repay the free tuition that they got. But you're further reinforcing this idea of debt being a debt servant, kind of like an indentured servant. And I don't really know that it's getting at the root of the problem here, which is that education is simply too expensive in this country, not the mechanism of loans versus indentured servitude out of your, wage garnishment. I think it's not really addressing the issue.
Yeah, it's a way to kind of deal with the issue. And maybe one of the best ways we have currently, because it seems that student loan forgiveness or some type of universal plan to include a college education in your, I suppose, income taxes is seems to be completely off the table. Other countries do it, and it seems to work pretty well. But I just think we're too deep. We're too entrenched in the current system that this is the only way we can come up with to try and help these people who would be in serious debt.
The other issue is I ran some numbers, and I'm not sure that this helps people who are making. I think this might only even be useful depending on how much money you're making. So, for example, if you make $75,000 a year, okay, let's say you make that over 20 years or something. Actually, no, that's not even a good example. Let's say over some period of time, over 25 years, you make an average of $37,500 a year. So maybe you start out at $28,000, but at the end of that 25-year period, maybe you're making more like $80,000. Just for example, it averages out to about $37,500 a year. 3% of that is about $1,125 a year, right? Or about $95 a month or so. And that amounts to roughly $28,000 over 25 years. This is way more than the average national student loan debt. And if you were to pay off a loan on that, it'd be around $150 a month for 10 years if you were to take on kind of the average student loan debt. And even including this higher interest rate, you would still end up paying less than you would under this pay it out of your earnings option. Maybe the math wasn't exactly clear, but I encourage you to kind of run the numbers yourself with numbers that make sense to you. I don't even know that this is always a good deal, and I worry about putting people basically as slaves to corporations. That's my concern, Lewis.
And then you've got the people who might end up being incredibly successful, making hundreds of thousands a year, maybe even millions a year. And then aren't they still stuck paying what would be, a ton of money? Of course, they can afford it, but a ton of money compared to what they, otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this helps people who make less more than it does those who make more. Because if you don't make that much money, you pay your 3% for 20 years and then you're done, and you actually end up paying less than you would if you were to take out a loan. So I understand how it could be useful. I'm not saying every scenario is bad, but I am concerned about how the numbers are going to end up working and about making people slaves to corporations. Let's take a break. Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Check us out on Facebook. A lot more stories coming up. Glad you're with us today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.